The most interesting thing that I kind of want to call out is iOS 18 was kind of talked about in the past week or two. And there's kind of two main things that I took away from that. Number one is the inbox categorization. So the basically Apple kind of mobile devices, mobile app, they're going to have 4 categories kind of coming out in which they're going to sort your mail. And essentially it's primary, the promotions, the updates, and the transactions. And they're going to do a better job and a really good job filtering these inboxes. So it is going to be harder to get to the primary. And one interesting thing with that is now that there's this thing called summarization. I think this all is going to affect, I think, later this year, but essentially what's going to happen is if brands send multiple emails in the 3 categories, so promotions, updates, and transactions, it's going to group them together, and Apple's AI is basically going to say, based off the subject line, the preview text, and the contents of the email, this is what it's about.
Wow. All right. What's up, guys? How are you? Good? We gotta get a little energy going there? Yeah? Awesome. All right, guys. I'm excited to kick this thing off with my friend Chase here. We've got a lot of cool things to talk about. We're gonna start off with a little bit of intro, Chase, so let's kick it off. So who am I? For those who don't know, I'm the founder of SendLane. That's who's putting the event together. I've been in what's that called again? I've been in email marketing, digital marketing for over 15 years, and I'm a former D2C brand owner. The whole story of SendLane was that I had a problem, I needed to solve it. This is back in 2013, and we developed something on our own, and eventually it became a business in 2017, and it's been one heck of a ride. Chase, I want you to introduce yourself now. There you go.
What's going on, guys? I'm a self-proclaimed email marketing nerd. I run an agency where we've done hundreds of millions of dollars for our clients. Pretty cool. I was actually recently named by Shopify as the #1 e-commerce influencer to follow, and I've owned a couple brands and agencies, and really excited to be here.
Yeah, so Chase and I, we were talking about how we could come up with something really fun to talk about here today. So we're gonna talk about the state of email. So before we get into that, I think it's really fun. How many people, is this your second time being at Commerce Roundtable? Put raise your hands up there. All right, cool. So welcome to a lot of the first time people that are here. And the funny thing about Commerce Roundtable is it's not as new as you might think it is. Many of you guys might have been here for the first time. So Chase, I'm gonna break down the story real quick about Commerce Roundtable, all right? So Commerce Roundtable started off in 2019. In 2019, what happened was we had made this pivotal thing. We had raised some money. We were building this new platform for e-commerce. And Amir, my VP of partnerships, was coming to me and he was like, we need to put together something to bring together the people that we want to sell to. And at that time, we decided that it'd be really easy to go after like this market that we loved, which was like the CBD and cannabis market. So we were able to go get like 50 people and put them into a room. This is like 2019. And we did this little fun thing. And you can see on the picture there, that was the original Commerce Roundtable. It was truly a roundtable where people discussed about the challenges of growing in a market that was different. And we were talking about email and how you could use and leverage that in being able to grow their business. However, what happened? COVID happened to us all. And when COVID happened to us, we knew that we had to make a pivot. All of us, everybody, I'm sure everyone's been on a digital webinar event, but we ran a ton of them. That's Caitlin and Amir up there, and we ran, 12 seasons of this thing. The biggest thing that we were known for, not only putting out really great content, but we were also giving away thousands of dollars of prizes on these events, and people really enjoyed that. So now, this led us till 2023. And in 2023, events started to die. Remember when the world opened up, everyone wanted to get back in person? Well, we ended up doing this, and last year we ran our very first event, which was just right outside on the pier over there, over the hotel, and I still remember distinctly to this day, I looked at Caitlin and I was looking off the pier and I was like, that back there, that's what we want to rent. We need to get closer to the water, and that's why we're here today. So that's the story of Commerce Roundtable. The whole intention was not to be about SendLane, the intention was to be about community and learning and growth, and a lot of the things you'll learn through this entire thing. Today we're gonna kick it off with an email talk, but the reality is a lot of the talks that we'll have, it will be about acquisition and stories and Amazon and subscribe and save. We've got some crazy panels together. One of my favorite panels is that end of the day panel on day 2, which is why agencies suck. I think that's a really fun little panel. And something we didn't announce here, we're giving away one brand in this room, a $100,000 giveaway. The end of day 2 tomorrow, we'll be calling live raffle. We'll be giving away $100,000, Chase, for a brand to give away in a sweepstakes. So if you've ever wanted to run a sweepstakes before but didn't want to invest the money, well, if you're in this room at the end of tomorrow and you get called up, our friends over at Shared Sweeps will be giving out $100,000. What do you think about that, Chase?
I don't know about that.
What do you do with that? What are we doing with that? List building, right?
100%.
Getting ready for Q4, right?
That's it.
All right. Well, big thanks to everyone who came out. Some pictures of last year and how the event looked like. And last year when we did this event, we weren't sure if we could top it, but pretty excited about this year. Big shout out to my team here for being able to put this thing together. We're very excited here. So big round of applause for them one more time. Thank you, team, again, publicly for this. All right, let's get to the fun stuff here. Let's talk about email chase. I really want to talk about what happened this year. So let's go ahead and kick it off. So let's start off. So what happened this year, Chase?
Yeah, I want to say, I think, one, this year there's been a lot of noise. But I think over the past 2 or 3 years, there's been tons of things that have happened. Everything from iOS 15 to now we're getting into iOS 18. So
yeah, deliverability became a hot topic. I remember talking about that and saying, hey, this is something that you weren't really aware of. And then, of course, the big Yahoo thing happened, right? What happened with Yahoo?
Yeah, so I think, well, first on the deliverability side, it's crazy to me that this wasn't something that we were having conversations about, but it seems like everyone now is freaking out because playing field has gotten different and it's gotten harder. But the main thing that's going to happen in Q1 and Q2 of this year was Yahoo and Google basically made changes to make it stricter for bulk senders. So anyone that's sending over 5,000 emails a day has to abide by these rules. So you have to have your email authentication, so the DKIM, the DMARC, the SPF, the one-click unsubscribe. We're going to look about how that's kind of impacted brands, basically losing subscribers in a little bit. And then your spam complaints have to be under 0.3%. So to kind of put that into perspective, if you send 1,000 emails, you're allowed at max 3 people marking you as spam. And the goal obviously is to be under that. And I think you had one note.
Yeah, and the big thing about this that people need to understand, it rolls on a rolling window. It's not about a single email campaign, which is really important to understand. It's a rolling window of time that is, and I think it's 7 days with Google right now. So the timeline went a little like this. We had in February 24th, we had Yahoo kind of kick off. In April, we had to strengthen a little bit, and then we had to go into full effect in June of 2024. And so we got a lot of data around that we're going to share. But the last thing that I thought was really interesting that Chase was talking about.
Yeah, so email sunsetting. So I'll talk about this in 1 second, but on the marketing side, a lot of us know about an automation called the sunset unengaged. And it basically is a way, kind of a last-ditch effort to let people know, hey, if you don't engage, if you don't want to be on our list, we're going to remove you. And the same thing is happening on the ISP side. So Microsoft, AOL, Yahoo, Gmail. If someone hasn't logged in or been active in their account for 12 months for Microsoft and then 2 years for the other, they're actually going to close down your email. And essentially what happens is if your email closes and you're still mailing those people, they're going to bounce. And over time, those email accounts might actually be turned into spam traps. So if you're not monitoring when someone opted into your guys' list and your guys' engaged segments, it's going to be potentially a disaster as these emails start getting shut down by the ISPs.
Yeah, and we have more data than ever nowadays, right? When they purchase, if they haven't purchased, if they've been up opt-in. It really is I think the biggest thing about email sunsetting that was important was it was all about people who had opted in, had not purchased, but they were still engaging with you or whatever. A lot of those false signals started to kind of happen. We'll talk about those signals in just a second here. So let's go into email metrics. I'm really excited about this. So let me tell you guys the breakdown of what we did. So first thing we did was we looked at our customers, and we looked at our 100 of our top customers that we have in our business, and we pulled all the data together to formulate all this stuff. It was based on 4.6 billion email sends and 270 million SMS sends. So we took a huge chunk of data, Chase, and we wanted to put it together. And in fact, we have a breakdown here that we're showing on screen here. Email was 41% unified. We had email only and SMS. That was the breakdown of these users on purpose. And this data set is for 2023 and 2024. So we can see a snapshot of January all the way to August of this year. So you excited to check this thing out?
Yes, definitely.
All right, so let's go on. So first things first, Chase, this was interesting.
Yeah, surprisingly. So brands are sending a lot more emails. So almost 60% increase year over year. And I think one of the things that we were talking about and thinking about is, well, why are they sending more? And I really think it comes down to the inefficiency of other channels, right? So Meta, Google, everything is becoming more expensive. It's becoming harder. So brands are really dependent and reliant on email to drive more revenue and ultimately more profitable revenue. So brands quite literally are hammering subscribers' inboxes just to drive more revenue and keep up with last year's numbers.
Yeah. And so with that sending of more emails, take a look at this. This is one of my most interesting slides because there's a lot to talk about here. How many people were in this room were doing email marketing or knew about email marketing in 2019? Yeah? Like half the room. This is great. And in 2019, we used to talk about 12 to 15% was a good open rate. Yet now we're talking 60% is what we're seeing, and you can see the trend occurring. Now what happened, Chase?
So iOS 15, if you guys remember, that came out around Q3 of 2021. Basically, Apple and those folks that are using Apple Mail allowed people to opt out of having their emails tracked. So basically what happened is now Apple is automatically loading everyone as having opened an email. So we're unsure of, did you open, did I open, is it legit, is it not legit? So there's inflation now of open rates.
Yeah, and you'll see, I think it's been really interesting to watch as you look at those brands and seeing it. Like January 2023, we were aiming for like a 38% open rate, and now people are talking 50, 60%, which kind of tells you how realistic this metric is, yeah?
Yeah, and one other thing worth mentioning is, at this point in time, 97% of people that have or have had iOS 15 have opted out of tracking. So basically, almost 100% of people that have iOS 15 have said, I don't want to be tracked. So you can't track their opens, you can't track their location, their IP, all those types of things. And about 52% of all our D2C sends are actually happening on Apple devices, right? So more than half of the sends we're doing, we don't really know whether someone's legitimately opening or not.
Yeah. And that leads to, obviously, as you guys could probably figure out, it resulted in a decrease of click-to-open rates. Obviously, if you're sending more emails and you're getting more false opens, you're starting to see a decline occur. And there's a little spike there. You guys will all see the little spike. That was the Microsoft bot issue that a lot of people saw and occurred. You can see that spike occurring, but you can see the trend line that's happening with this. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think this used to be one of the metrics I really relied on to see if you were doing an A/B test on content, what type of content's moving the needle, right? So if you could see everyone that opened and then the clicks based off the email, before you used to have a lot of data on, was this specific copy or this specific design performing better? And now it's hard to tell, and this is only going to get worse, right? Like as more emails are being kind of inflated and opened, this metric continues to get worse and therefore becomes entirely unreliable.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the only steady metric that we saw, and I think this is really interesting, is the click rate. And I know it looks big because of things, but it's just on a 1 to 1.5%. And again, you can see the Microsoft occurrence occur where you can see it, but overall, it's been a steady trend line and it's actually been declining.
Yeah, and do you guys remember a couple months ago, like we all woke up to what we thought was amazing click rates, but it wasn't the case. I remember on my personal newsletter, I was getting like 1 or 2%, and then I got like overnight, I had like 5 or 10%. I'm like, holy shit, I did something. I don't know how, but I increased the click rate. It turns out I wasn't that good. Everyone had the inflation. Do you guys remember that at all?
Yeah,
everyone's shaking their head. Couple months. Yeah, okay.
So no, it's been interesting to watch this, but you can see that it's been stable over the year, and the reality of what it's really telling me is that that's the metric that really is the only metric that's staying stable within it. In fact, I think this was the most interesting. We're sending more email. Well, what's happening in there? Well, one of the things that we do in our company at SendLane when we're doing compliance and deliverability, we look at a metric called unsubscribe to action, UTA. And what that means is, it means that how many people are taking the action of unsubscribing. They're clicking on the unsubscribe button and actually finishing the unsubscribe action, right? I hit manage preference and then leave. A, it tells you, do they know who you are? But B, will they actually take off and make that decision? And as you can see, Apple Mail privacy increased that, and we continue to see that increase. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I just want to double down. Like the part that were mentioned before with the one click to unsubscribe, now it's almost so easy to opt out that unfortunately, if you don't send relevant, personalized, good content, and you're sending more frequently, this is just going to continue to spike. So it's all about when you are sending more frequently, making sure that you are sending better content and more relevant content that people actually want to receive and care about, or else it's going to go through the roof.
Yeah, and you can see the spike occurring. That was at mail privacy. When all the things started to change, what's like a mail privacy and the unsubscribe being put on the top as a one click, we started to see that kind of start increasing, and we're continuing to see it increase as time goes on. All right, so let's talk about money, because this is great. We're looking at the high level data. I also want to back into the other side, which is what are we seeing on email conversion? So we pulled together those AOVs down. Take a look at this, and we're seeing a decline of AOV, of average order values of a conversion inside of an email, which could be attributed to probably sending more email, right?
Yeah, I think absolutely sending more email, and we're going to see some other metrics, and spoiler alert, they're all decreasing, right? And the reality is I think people just aren't shopping as much online. There's less disposable income. I think more people are actually going to retail than before while we were all at home during COVID. So yeah, the numbers are a little bit scary, but maybe they're just kind of leveling out. I guess it'd be interesting to see, and we didn't pull this, like what did pre-2020 look like.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think we saw the COVID effect happen. People are spending more. We're starting to see it stabilize. And over time, when we have enough data, you'll probably be able to create a trend line, and we'll see the anomaly that was the pandemic ultimately. In fact, we can't talk about email without talking about, well, the SMS conversion, because we need to know what's going on there too. And take a look, SMS also declining on those average. And these are all based on last click actions, just so you guys know, last click before conversion. So that's the data that we're pulling off of. What do you think about the SMS side changing?
Yeah, it's crazy. It kind of makes me think about, like, you still obviously have to do email and SMS. You just have to be more strategic and probably level set kind of forecast and expectation. And again, you do have to keep sending more. It's going to probably decrease as you send more, but like the only cure for all this is really volume. The only cure for mitigating all these things we're talking about is just volume.
Well, I also think with SMS, especially in 2022, we're in the height of it, right? We're still trying to figure things out. We're still using our phones a lot. The real life experience, retail is up, right? So we're seeing those other things continue to move up. All right, let's keep going here. And then we talk about the overall decline. So we took an average order value of all the stores that we have, of all the data, and we pushed them together and did an average of it. And you can see that the overall average order value has slightly declined over time too.
Yeah, I think this is the summary, right? That why we're all hurting and feeling kind of the reality of the past 12, 18 months is things are getting worse in a lot of ways, but hopefully this weekend, we're going to learn about ways to hopefully be kind of the minority that's increasing, not kind of decreasing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is all really interesting data. And one thing that I think a lot of people will start to question is like, well, what does the split look like? What does it look like when it comes down to that last click attribution? So we took that data and said, well, where are people actually still buying from? And here's the data that we have, again, unified people who are making the purchase, who have both email and SMS. This is the data that we're breaking out on the last click conversion. We're still seeing 81% of those conversions occurring from email and 19% from SMS. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was surprised by this. I'm an email guy, I know you're an email guy, so it's kind of happy and great to see this, but I had an expectation that was going to probably be something like 70-30. I didn't realize it was going to be kind of as drastic as it is.
But you know, I was thinking about my own behavior, Chase. I don't know if you do this, but sometimes I'll be walking down and I'll get an SMS, and then I'll think, hey, that's cool, but then I don't want to buy it on my phone often, and I'll jump back to a computer and make the final purchase, and I may even click on it. And I think there's some truth to that story that's occurring, especially the older generation. I know, I'm in my 40s, and I still don't trust the mobile, I guess, as much as I trust the desktop, and I make those purchases. And I know Gen Z is a little bit different there, and you could argue with the right collection of Gen Z brands that you might see a flip in that numbers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that was measured on last click, and it was based on only the unified. So let's jump into 2025. I think this is where I get really most excited about, is we're thinking about the future. Where are we heading? Where are things heading right now with email? So let's break this down. I'll start with you, Chase, because I think you love the AI, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing that I kind of want to call out is iOS 18 was kind of talked about in the past week or two. And there's kind of two main things that I took away from that. Number one is the inbox categorization. So basically Apple kind of mobile devices, mobile app, they're going to have 4 categories kind of coming out in which they're going to sort your mail. And essentially it's primary, the promotions, the updates, and the transactions. And they're going to do a better job and a really good job filtering these inboxes. So it is going to be harder to get to the primary. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of how open rates and kind of how the performance of these other things happen. But the first one is the categorization. So there's more kind of folders coming in which your mails are going to be routed. And one interesting thing with that is now that there's this thing called summarization. I think this all is going to affect, later this year, but essentially what's going to happen is if brands send multiple emails in the 3 categories, so promotions, updates, and transactions, it's going to group them together, and Apple's AI is basically going to say, based off the subject line, the preview text, and the contents of the email, this is what it's about. And they're going to basically just summarize them. So instead of before you could see them as individual emails, they're going to basically be threaded, and they're going to summarize it themselves, which really we're going to talk about in a bit, but your copywriting has to be on point. When you do have images, you really have to make sure that you're adding alt text. Like all these things are going to be so important because Apple is really leaning into AI.
Yeah, that's a big one. If you're still doing image-only emails, like the bigger part of alt text is going to become more and more important because you don't want Google to decide what they think they see on your image. You need to tell it what they're doing, and you need to hopefully be able to start learning and optimizing around that. I think that's interesting, and so is the spam filters. I think just as much as we as marketers and humans and operators learn more about AI and the use of it, you're also being taught at the spam filter rate, and they're looking for different things that are happening. That's definitely there. The second challenge that I think is more challenges starting to happen within third party versus first party. I think the rise of first party continues to happen. I think that's been a message for a while now, but we're starting to continue to see that occur. We're seeing more of a focus of the change, right? I think what's interesting is that how many people here would know what an RFM model is? Raise the hands. Handful of you guys. So the RFM model, recency frequency monetization, is an old school email marketing tactic. That's how I learned back in 2008, 2009. We used to download the spreadsheets, look at LTVs, look at click rates, look at cycles and purchases, and it makes segments based around those, right? What I think what's happening right now is we're taking it all the way back, and people are starting to talk more about it. CLTV, meaning if I have customers, because the whole point of retention is to take your customers and make a second purchase, right? And so if you think about CLTV, and you think about, hey, I've got an $80 customer, $120 customer, and $180 customer, you should be treating all three segments of that customer differently. That's what the model basically taught you. So you want to take the $80 customer and make him a $120 customer. You want to take the $120 customer, make him a $180 customer, right? Each of those segments needing and requiring different things. We also are looking at click rates, obviously, for the reason. And the last part of the challenge, and I put this as a challenge because growing inboxes are big right now, right? We just talked about 60% more email being sent out. We're anticipating that just means that you got more noise to cut through, plus you have the AI filtering, you have the AI stuff. Like all of these things are gonna be new challenges for brands more than ever. And the big thing I say and take away as we've been going through this, Chase, is I feel like the job of an email marketer is getting harder, more specific, and more important, right? It's no longer can you just throw some images up and make some conversions. Yep. All right, and then the last one here, Chase.
Yeah, the last one, this one's been really interesting. All the states, not all, but a lot of the states are starting to roll out their own privacy. So the big one for us in California is the CCPA. And a lot of them aren't too dissimilar to like the whole GDPR that happened in Europe. But a lot of the states now are adopting kind of their own rules and laws and regulations. And you guys have to be careful and mindful of this because there's a whole breed of lawyers out there that are just awful lawyers that are just going to go after people that are kind of in violation of these. I've gotten hit a couple times with some of these. Thankfully, never ever got sued, never ever went through. But there's lawyers out there that are just kind of having fake emails. They're kind of monitoring. They're sending you these letters, and it's kind of scary. So really make sure that you're understanding the different states' rules and regulations because it's happening. Like everything is moving towards more privacy. Everyone is looking out for the customer in their minds, right? Apple says they're looking out for the customer, or they're really looking out for themselves, but there is becoming more privacy in the market right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the GDPR push, right? It's happening slowly. I think the big thing I thought was really important is that last line. Over 130 countries now have their own version of privacy laws related to email and email privacy now, and that's just going to continue to grow because, well, people don't want spam. They want unwanted emails, and I know you guys aren't sending spam, but the reality is anytime people are getting unwanted emails, so they are no longer in a purchasing, they're not interested in your brand, that is spam at the end of the day, and that's the way that they want to classify it too. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, then one other thing to say is like it's been really interesting to see like the agency and kind of the brand evolution of their teams. Like, in the early days, you could have a founder or a single marketer managing the copy and kind of the design, right? It wasn't great design. And then it moved to, wow, you need to have beautiful designed emails. So now you actually need email designers. And now it's like, now that deliverability is becoming kind of a topic again, you're now needing either your marketer or a specific deliverability specialist to know email deliverability. And now it's like, with privacy, do you have to retain now a lawyer? Should your marketer be kind of studying up on the rules and the regulations? It's just kind of adding more cost and complexity. So hopefully we can all do more with less, but these are all things that you guys need to be thinking about in your agency. Maybe on the agency side, you have someone that's kind of in charge of all these that can let everyone, all your clients know, all your team know. And on the brand side, right, maybe you and some buddies that have other companies find someone that can be a lawyer that can just send you guys kind of updates that you guys can all split the bill on. So these are all things to be mindful of.
Yeah, and as you guys look at this, and we've just told you all the doom and gloom, the reality is there's things that you can do. And so we want to talk about what you should be doing and what you should be thinking about as you're rolling into 2025, rolling into Black Friday. All of these things are really important things to think about. So let's start with the first, and I'm going to start first because I love this stuff. But Audience, right? I believe wholeheartedly audience management is the core key of retention. I think a lot of brands don't do a good enough job. If you're just sending a 90-day engage bubble, you're doing the things that are more or less the modern day batch and blast. You're not thinking about it anymore. I mean, there's so much data and behavior, opt-ins, actions, customers, repeat customers, right? You really need to think about it. And the thing I talked about earlier, what I call the MVC formula, which is basically what RFM is, but broken down in an easier sense. It's all about figuring out your most valuable customers, splitting them up into different cohorts of segments, and talking to each to help them drive that next value, right? So again, taking an $80 customer and making him a $120 customer takes different effort than taking a $120 customer and making him a $180 customer. And if you start thinking like that and start using data around that, you can start segmenting your audience deeper, and it doesn't mean that you have to go crazy with like completely different messages. It's just little tweaks to that message, right? You might not have to build the same brand authority, you might not have to hype him up the same way, you might not have to give him the same discount. These are all things that come in. In fact, that also leads up to copy and design.
Yeah, so as we kind of mentioned, like with the whole iOS thing that's coming, right, they're going to be sorting your guys' emails based off AI and categorizing and putting a summary together. So copywriting not only now is important for the end user that's receiving it, right? We want them to receive messages that are relevant. We want them to take actions, but now it's also super important for actually making sure that the contents of your email are being displayed as they should. So, subject lines, the preview text, we mentioned before and we'll mention again, adding kind of the alt text behind images. Like the more things that you guys could do, both for the human as well as for kind of the robots, the AI, the better. And with that, your brand matters a lot, right? How people feel about your brand, how people talk about your brand, how people think about your brand. So really investing into brand, that's one of the few moats you guys have to really stand out in an inbox that's crowded. If you send emails that are entertaining or helpful or funny, whatever it might be, people are going to look for your emails and they're going to want to open your emails, and they're going to open your emails based off the from name, right? Either a person's name or a company's name. So you want people to engage with you because they like you.
Absolutely. And the last one is consistency. I think this is becoming clear in 2025. If anyone who follows me on social, one of the things I love saying is like, send more email. And I say this with a vague thing because it really can mean anything. But the reality is it's going to help your spam filters, right? If you're getting 1,000 per 3, if you send 2,000, you have 3, your spam filter number goes down. Secondly, it's the noise. I think the biggest thing is you're either in the noise or out of the noise. Everyone who checked their email this morning, I know you checked it, but you didn't go and say, well, that brand didn't send me an email, so I'm going to give them a better value. No. That's not how the world works anymore. There's so much noise now these days. You've got to be in the noise or you're not in the noise at all. And that's where I say consistency is super important, where you should be pushing. If you're sending 1-2 emails a week, you should be moving that up to 3, 4, even 5 or more. Some of the best brands in the market are sending a daily email at this point. And there's a reason why they're the best brands in the market, because they're maximizing that channel ultimately and staying within the noise. And of course, it's not about timing. It's about timing, but not time, right? It's not about, it's 90-day engage. It's really about when's my next purchase cycle? When's my behavior, right? You guys all have a sales cycle behavior within your audience. It may take an opt-in 7 days on average to make a purchase. We should be looking at that and thinking about that and maximizing those time points to be able to bring them in, because everything we do, at the end of the day, I know it's a creative role, there's a lot of things, but it's still data. And the data shows you something very clearly. And if you know that if someone opts into something and then in 7 days they purchase on average, I'm ramping that up at day 5, day 3, 4, 5, and I'm pushing harder and harder on that message. I'm giving more consistency on that message, and I'm pushing them to make the purchase ultimately. And that's really what we think about. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of equate it is think about the intensity of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, maybe toning it down slightly, but that kind of intention around driving revenue and really delivering for your customers throughout the entirety of the year. And I think if you do that, you're going to drive a lot more engagement and revenue.
Yeah. So what's that called? And so with that, I think as we're wrapping this thing up, one of the things that Chase and I, we spent a lot of time working on this thing, putting together data, dissecting data, discussing the different things that we had. And one of the things that we thought was really exciting was, we both nerd out on this stuff. I know some of you guys are like, email, whatever, but us, we care about this a lot. And that's why we're really excited. One of the things that we're working on, and I know you guys need another podcast in your life, but the reality is we're launching a retention and email and SMS dedicated podcast called Send It. And in fact, we took it a little bit step further with us. We're actually launching, of course, a newsletter because, well, we're newsletter. We're going to do a very retention-focused newsletter that we're launching, which we're really excited to go share. And Chase and I are going to go out and hopefully continue to feed you the newest and best intel in the world. So that's what we're excited about. With that, guys, I want to thank you guys all for being here. Thank you guys all. I think we're going to have an incredible next 2 days. Thank you guys all.
Thank you.